With the shot, Taurus's rifle tore out the guts of the sentry robot mindlessly patrolling around the Roe Bronco retail store. Sighting with the scope was immensely more effective than using the lighter assault carbine, and the heavy hunting rounds punched through their armor soundly. It was a bit more challenging than just running and shooting, but infinitely safer.
You know, I could just run in and stomp them all into scrap metal,
Rampage said in a bored tone as she drew a picture of a filly in the mud with her hoof claws.
And you'd stomp the talismans with them,
Glory pointed out.
That's why I'm not zapping them either.
Well, and because her AER wasn't working yet, and I had the longest ranged weapon.
And
I fired off the last shot. My aim was just a little bit off, and the head of the robot exploded in a spray of shrapnel.
Horse apples,
I muttered, glancing at the small Pegasus.
Sorry about that.
Well, we might find more inside. Remember, no smashing heads if you can help it. Talismans are usually pretty brittle, she reminded us. Unless they're made out of diamonds. But still. She trotted ahead to examine the robotic remains. She still isn't flying? P-21 asked me softly. I shook my head, wondering about that. I don't know why either. Had removing her cutie mark somehow damaged her ability to fly? Was it psychological, or maybe something else?
I'm not a smart pony. I don't even know how Pegasi fly, period.
Magic, Rampage taunted as she trotted past us towards the store. Ah, of course, P-21 muttered with a smile, rolling his eyes and limping after her while they picked up my spent casings before catching up. I watched his leg with a sigh. Scalpel could have healed it after a day or two, but the injury had set. It would take a fully operational health restoration matrix to repair it. Basically, a medical megaspell. He would still have to wear that damned leg brace. I silently wished the wasteland could be a little more fair for once. Bust my leg and let him walk. But the wasteland didn't work like that. He got to limp, and I got to guilt. I loaded Cupcake's revolver and moved into the Roe Bronco retail store. Brown tiles, cracked and water-stained, crunched under hoof as I moved in. Row after row of rustling models stood at attention on their display pedestals. I took 3 steps before a buzz filled the room and a few lights flickered to life.
Welcome, visitors, to the Frankfurt Roe Bronco Outlet Center,
the speakers crackled, and wispy music began to play as we moved through the store. There were red bars on my EFS. Clearly, not all of these robots were just on display. As we walked, occasionally an automatic message would spout off as we moved through the display floor.
Here at Roe Bronco, quality is key is our motto and the motto of our founder, Mr. Horse. Every Roe Bronco unit comes installed with a spark generator capable of months of sustained operation. And with your own handy recharging station, your Roe Bronco robot can operate indefinitely. It's not just a purchase for you, but for your grandfoals too. Talk to our automated sales rep today.
You have to admit, machines working 2 centuries without supervision is pretty impressive,
Glory said quietly, as she looked at the sprite bots floating around the store and playing bland music.
Why are you whispering?
Rampage asked as she pointed at the machines.
They're playing music, so I'm pretty sure that if something can hear us, it doesn't really care.
As she returned her attention to the store around us, I noticed that P-21 was looking at her, his eyes roaming over her more closely than I'd ever seen him regard a mare. Hi, Rampage? She looked over her shoulder at him, arching a brow. Those stripes. She just smiled like he was a tasty little menthol, her pink eyes locking with his.
Yes?
She asked in a tone that did not invite further questioning. Well, he began, then swallowed. Never mind. I really wondered if he'd dare trot through this minefield. Why do you look like a red zebra? She blinked, then laughed.
Oh, is that all? Wow. I thought you were going to ask me something, personal.
She smiled warmly at him as she approached.
Well, the reason is pretty simple.
Yes? He asked as she walked towards him languidly. She grinned as she stretched her face towards his, making him lean back nervously as she replied,
It's 'cause I wanna.
Then she turned and continued picking through the store. He gave a smoldering glare at her, and then glanced at me, daring me to comment. I just smiled as I looked at some of the interesting robots. I passed by the standard Protect-A-Pony Sentry model and two spidery Mr. Handy and Mr. Gutsy models, levitation talismans long ago given out. I noted a larger metallic pony, balanced on two wheels between its hooves. A flat screen stared out of where its face would normally go.
The PDQ-88P Secure Pony is our newest upgrade for home and municipal security. With its automated repair and restoration upgrades, the system will be able to continue performing indefinitely against all threats.
There was a momentary pause, and then the voice said softly and quickly,
Automated repair and restoration options are not yet available at this time. Please contact a Robronco customer service representative for further details.
In the corner hulked a massive four-wheeled robot that looked more like an enormous crab than a pony. 4 heavy tires supported each of its splayed legs, and its vaguely equine head was nestled between armored shoulders. A minigun poked from one shoulder and a missile launcher from the other.
The SP Workhorse series of Sentry Ponies combines maximum firepower with a reinforced and magically shielded chassis capable of withstanding shock spells. When in place, you know the Workhorse is going to be keeping you nice and safe.
I looked at the looming mechanical monster, scratching my mane absent-mindedly as the speaker added softly,
Robronco not liable for collateral damage, injury, or death 30 days after placement. Please contact Robronco customer service representative for further details.
I didn't know Robronco was in the business of supplying tanks,
Glory said solemnly.
Tanks?
Rampage looked up at the machine and snorted.
That's not a tank. A US. That's a tank.
Then she stopped and scowled, but I couldn't tell at what.
A what? Robronco Ultra Sentinel. And if you find one, you'll know. Then you'll be dead,
Rampage said as she focused and suddenly struck out with her hoof. The impact left an inch-deep impression in its armor. P-21 looked at the indentation and then asked with a smirk, Then how do you know about them and yet still live? But for some reason, the question really seemed to piss her off.
'Cause I'm really tough to kill,
she replied, her scowl darkening. I rolled my eyes, keeping the revolver floating beside me. The door to the back was marked Maintenance Garage, authorized Robronco employees only. From the red bars, it was fairly clear that whatever was in there was unfriendly. I guardedly pushed my way through into a mess. Neat stacks of robot parts had tumbled down and lay rusting in iron-reeking pools. An unwholesome rainbow hue spread around the racks of spoiled electronics and scrap metal piles. A broken pipe near the ceiling sprinkled foul water down into the mechanics pits. Despite the corrosion on every surface, however, the beam turrets near the roof slowly rotated this way and that, searching for intruders, and I heard the odd hum of a levitation talisman somewhere on the second floor. My pit-buck began to crackle as I walked past a bank of spoiled spark batteries. The burst containers oozed purple and orange glowy fluids into the water around my hooves, and my radiation meter responded accordingly. Without a word, Glory passed out tablets of Radix. Rampage looked at it scornfully.
What? You're immune to radiation too? Nope, but it can't kill me,
she said, as she then trotted ahead of us out into the open.
Enough sneaking around,
she yelled brightly.
This is getting boring.
Warning, warning. You are not authorized to be here. Warning, surrender immediately.
Unfortunately, neither the robots nor the turrets seemed likely to recognize surrender, and Rampage certainly wasn't in the mood, as Protect-A-Pony robots shambled forward like metal zombies and turrets began to spray beams of crimson death at her. Her metal armor blackened as it deflected some of the energy, and she launched herself across the room to rip the robots to pieces.
"Mind the heads! Beep!"
Glory called out as the turrets detected us, and let out a rapid-fire stream of magical energy that scorched holes in my Barney and hide. I narrowed my eyes and brought up Sats, putting 4 heavy revolver rounds into the casing. Glory finished it off with 2 pink bolts of disintegrating magic. Unfortunately, our fire seemed to be waking up more of the machines. They stepped out of their waterlogged recharging stations, dripping rust. In fact, I wasn't exactly sure how much of a threat they were till their unrusted heads started to fire, I put the last 2 rounds into the chest of a shambling metal pony. Then, with an electric shock, the pony exploded. Hot, sharp metal showered down over me as a jolt shocked my hooves.
Careful! They're really unstable.
They're not the only thing, Glory shouted. Rampage, laughing like a maniac as she bucked the sparking remains into a turret. A door slid open, and out rolled a workhorse sentry.
Rampage! Big one! Stick it!
I shouted as I dumped the shell casings into the water and loaded 6 more of the large caliber pistol bullets. The robot's left shoulder popped open and sent a missile through the air, blasting into the striped pony and sending her flying into a heap of robotic scrap. It rolled slowly around, bringing the Gatling gun to bear.
Never mind! Scatter!
I shouted as I ran across the loading bay, away from P-21 and Glory. Cupcake's gun barked in rather pathetic fashion, even with Sats guiding the shots to an eerie whine of the minigun strafing after me. The sensation of being hit by a minigun was entirely different from anything I'd felt before. I felt as though I'd been slipped underneath a sewing machine without thread. From ass to rib, a line of small deadly rounds tried to perforate anywhere not covered by armor, and managed to punch through a few places regardless. I collapsed into the mucky water, falling behind an overturned desk. "Stay down!" P-21 shouted, drawing a shock grenade as the workhorse sentry rolled through the water. He tossed it right at the front of the robot, and it detonated with an oddly anticlimactic beep and crackle. The robot, however, jerked spasmodically as its spell matrices were assaulted. It didn't stop, though. Suddenly, the pile of scrap was tossed aside as Rampage rose with a hysterical laugh. The left side of her face had melted to the bone, yet I could see the flesh crawling back into place. Her lips dripped foam from Stampede, and, laughing madly, she charged through the muck towards the robot. It turned its minigun on her, and I watched in horror as the stream of rounds ripped face from flesh and flesh from bone. Yet she didn't fall. She ran against the stream of fire even as it tore into her chest, as if it were a light shower of rain. Churned organs fell into the water as she closed the distance. Suddenly, the gun clicked, its ammo expended. Rampage lacked face, throat, and apparently lungs. None of that stopped her from launching herself through the air and slamming into the robot with such force that one of its front legs was torn from its socket. Her head turned and gripped the handle of one of the blades she carried, pulling out something resembling a cross between a chainsaw and a knife. Her bloody jaws clenched, and the weapon began to whir. Hooves locked on, the Reaper began to tear into the body with the sparking saw blade. The robot responded by simply collapsing against Rampage. I heard bones shatter, as even her strength wasn't enough to stop its incredible mass. Or was it? Slowly, she rose on broken limbs and tore her way deeper into the machine with savage sweeps of her head. A panel finally gave way, and with an electric shock, it exploded and went silent. Rampage stood there, shaking, a strange pink light seeming to stitch her slowly back together as we watched. Glory approached with a restoration potion in her mouth, but Rampage just looked her in the eye and shook her head firmly. Glory brought the potion to me instead. The strange pink glow faded, her flesh restored. Suddenly, she hunched over and puked up a deluge of bloody minigun rounds over and over again. As the magic potion restored my flesh, she screamed and began to claw at herself, tearing open gruesome knots that bulged under her skin. As each tore open, blood and more minigun rounds tumbled into the water. With a scream of rage, she went through the shop like an earthquake, ripping and tearing at everything around her in blind fury. We simply retreated upstairs, unsure if she could recognize friend from foe. Finally, she collapsed, shaking as she hung her head and wept. Slowly I approached her.
Rampage? Are you okay?
It was right at the top of my list of stupid questions I shouldn't ask. She stared right at me with her wet pink eyes and spat a bullet in my face.
What the fuck do you think?
Without another word, she turned and walked back out front. I returned to the others upstairs.
What did that? Stampede?
Glory opened and closed her mouth in shock.
Nothing can do that. Nothing. Did you see that trauma? She was missing her face. Multiple compound fractures in her limbs and ribs, and she still stood. Right.
I looked the way Rampage had gone and then looked at Glory.
Right. You find your talismans.
I looked at P21.
You see if you can find anything else valuable. I'm going to make sure she's stable.
Clearly, they didn't envy my job. I made my way out front of the retail store and was met by the sight of Rampage picking her nose with a hoof claw. I balked a moment as she snorted, and then blew 3 bloody rounds from her sinuses.
This is a real bad time, Blackjack. What are you?
I asked as I walked to her.
Good question,
she muttered. I stepped in front of her.
I need to know. How did you just do that? Piss off, Blackjack. I don't know you or any pony else answers.
I sighed.
Rampage, I want to help you if I can. You want to help?
She began to laugh, sitting down hard.
Well, of course you do. That's what you do, after all.
She grinned at me, and I suddenly appreciated how shiny recently regenerated teeth were.
So, why don't you go ahead and tell me, what am I? Don't fuck around with,
I began, but she rose and thrust her face into mine.
What the fuck am I?
She screamed in my face, and it took everything I had to not shoot her with a magic bullet and reflex.
How the fuck do I do what I do? How did I just do that? How do I know what an Ultra Sentinel is? I've never even seen one before. Why is it that I can speak Zebra? How come I can drink radioactive waste until I'm shitting rainbows and still not fucking die? Why do I come back again and again and again?
She gripped my shoulders with her hooves, claws digging in as she screamed.
Who the fuck am I, Blackjack? Rampage!
I shouted through gritted teeth as her hoof claws shoved in deeper and deeper.
Who? What? Why can't I fucking die? Why?
She yelled hysterically. Okay, there was not okay. And then there was an entire world of fucked upness that transcended all boundaries of normalcy. I'd visited there for a couple of days while traveling with Glory. Rampage apparently lived there full time. Unfortunately, Rampage was also about to rip my forelegs off. I hit sets and toggled 4 magic shots at both her knees. My horn flashed over and over again as the magical bullets tore through flesh and bone. With 2 small explosions, her forehooves came off, and we fell away from each other. She hissed in pain as I panted, drawing the pump-action shotgun. I doubted it would actually do anything, but I wasn't going to fuck around. Those claws hurt. Before my eyes, the pink light returned, and she shook as bone extended from the stumps. Flesh and muscle wrapped around it, and finally skin and hoof materialized. For a moment, I was afraid she was going to charge me, but instead, she just took a deep breath and walked over to her own dismembered legs, removing the claws and tossing her limbs aside. You don't know who you are or what you are? I asked softly. She looked pissed, but finally slumped as she said softly.
My earliest memory was a while ago. Some ghouls found me in the Myrmir crater with half a tank lodged in my skull. They must have thought I was a ghoul like them, because they pulled me out. Surprise, surprise, when I had a pulse. I was completely clueless. They used me, then sold me to some pieces of shit that eventually founded Paradise. After a few years, I was sick of getting fucked and broke free. I drifted a little bit and found Scalpel when she was still a wandering medic with old Bonesaw. Tried to figure me out. Scalpel eventually found that heap of a healing booth, rigged the auto dock, and put down roots and flank. Bonesaw settled down in Megamart. Me? I ended up in chapel when it was just me and some dumb cult wanting to fix up that stupid church of his.
You know Priest? Something about my question made her smirk.
Knew him. I fucked him.
That sent a slap through me, before she added with a chuckle.
Or I wanted to anyway. We hung out together and found more kids. Usually the young of ponies making the walk.
Pilgrims, I muttered.
Yeah, that's what he called them. Young colts and fillies, though, they're tougher. Haven't been worn down as bad. They stuck around rather than following their parents, and we formed the Crusaders together.
She sighed softly.
I always wished I could have been one of them.
I remembered what Scoodle had mentioned so many days back.
Arlast,
I murmured, getting a sharp look.
That's your name. It was a name Scalpel made up for me. Before that, I was the fuck man.
She said sharply, then sighed and rolled her eyes.
Arlast.
She shook her head.
Eventually I got sick of it. I wasn't like him. It hurt to be around him. So I left, wandered around, crossed paths with a Reaper named Rampage. She swore she could kill me 20 different ways. I was only looking for one. Turns out she was a lot squishier than me. And Big Daddy Reaper let me join. It took her name and her armor. I was tired of Arlast. Too many regrets. And then Big Daddy sent you to me,
I said in conclusion. She gave a mirthless smile and shrug.
I want to fucking die, Blackjack. You've been out in the wasteland for a couple of weeks. I've been staring at it in the face for years, and it's not getting better. The hoof is a meat grinder. Ponies keep coming, and they keep dying. It's getting worse. The poison spreads a little more every day, and one day, if I don't die, I think I'm going to be the last fucking living thing in the stinking corpse of Equestria. So just go to the core. They'll vaporize you instantly
and our eyes met. Her face was a mask of horror.
You've been there, haven't you? I'm not going to talk about it,
she whispered softly.
But
like that, she was on top of me.
Not talking about it.
And looking into her eyes, I knew she'd kill me right now, rather than say another word.
Okay.
I grunted in pain. She was heavy in that armor. Slowly, she climbed off me.
I just wish there was something I could do. Join the club. But that's the great thing about the wasteland. It will throw shit at you time and time again, letting you stare at it in frustration like a glass of nice cool water on the other side of some bars while you're dying of thirst, she said as she looked at me. And you want to know the really fucked up part? You'll go crazy and bash your skull to paste before you die of thirst.
Inside, I found P-21 in the upstairs offices as Gloria examined the glyph-marked talismans glowing calmly on their shelves in a storeroom. He was working on a terminal, scowling at the screen as he struggled with password after password. He looked up at me. I can't believe I'm asking this, but how is she?
Messed up. So, she's in perfect company,
I replied with a wan smile.
It's weird. I'm so used to being the nexus of messed upness in the universe. I don't know how to handle other ponies' pain.
How did Gloria and I help you? He asked with a smile.
Lots of hugs. And not killing me, I added with a chuckle.
Yeah, that last bit helps a lot, he said, then closed out the screen again. Ugh, some pony was a paranoid bastard. He looked at me with a sigh. This is taking forever. All I can say is it better be worth it, or I'm going to invent time travel just to kick her ass. I thought back to the memory orb of the princesses. I'd try and do better if I had such a spell. Anyway, present for the Hornhead Club, he said as he reached into his pouch and pulled out another memory orb. Found it hidden in a drawer. Not sure if you'd want it. he added. Your track record with orbs is a little spotty.
Yeah, but
I swept it up in my magic and looked at him.
Like you said, I may as well, since I'd be waiting either way.
Sure. We have to do the actual looting while you take a stroll through other ponies' memories. From the nervous look in his eyes, I could tell he wasn't serious. He clearly remembered the last time I went into an orb, and didn't come out of it.
It's a dirty job, but some mayor's got to do it.
I chuckled, and raised the orb in salute before touching it to my horn, hoping I didn't come out of this dead, mutilated, or crying. The world whirled away. I was standing in a factory of some sort. A laboratory? Lots of ponies standing around a table, looking serious and frowning at a heap of scrap metal. Lots of nervous ponies in lab coats. I was in a mare, no wings, but she had a horn. Somehow, things were just clearer when I was in a unicorn mare.
3 ministry mares for a test demonstration. Is Horse mad?
A mustard-colored mare whispered softly in my ear. Then I noticed 3 sets of cutie marks directly in front of my host. 3 apples. A group of white stars around a large purple one, and a cloud and a thunderbolt. Rainbow Dash gave a very vocal yawn.
Boring. When's this thing supposed to start? Shush.
Applejack shushed.
It may be a cocky jackass, but Mr. Horse knows robots like no other.
I wish he'd start.
Twilight Sparkle said with her own impatient little huff.
Tarnation, girl. You in that much of a hurry to get to the lunch reception?
Twilight Sparkle bowed her head a little.
Actually, I had some other things to take care of since I'm in Huffington anyway.
You actually want to do things here?
Rainbow Dash asked, with a small frown.
If Shadowbolt Tower weren't here, I'd never come. Huffington's like the ugliest city I've ever seen.
A number of stallions and mares looked at her with poorly concealed frowns, and she added, unabashed.
Well, it is.
Still, it's churning out discoveries by the week. If things weren't so busy in Counterlot, I'd relocate some projects here. It's nice to be able to coordinate some things with MOP or MOM.
Twilight Sparkle said brightly.
Speaking of morale, have you talked to Pinkie Pie, Twilight?
Rainbow Dash asked.
Like, recently?
No, not for almost a month with everything so busy. Is she all right?
Rainbow Dash looked hesitant as she rubbed her mane.
She's just being way more random than usual. I haven't seen her like this since...
Fillies and gentle colts, thank you for coming, a pale gold earth pony stallion said as he trotted up to the table with a cloth-covered round drum on his back. He had the strangest little pencil-thin mustache and sparse, narrow brown mane. His cutie mark, perhaps appropriately enough, was 3 gears. He bucked his hips, caught the round cylinder neatly on his head, and then bounced it off to hold it in his hooves before the crowd. What I have inside this container is going to revolutionize manufacturing as we know it. Even Rainbow Dash looked interested now, as he set the container beside the pile of scrap metal. I give you the Mecha Sprite. And he whisked the cloth away to reveal a glass jar full of bearings?
That's it?
Twilight asked in confusion.
The normal ones were annoying enough. Now we're making our own out of metal?
Rainbow Dash complained. I beg you to be patient, he said with a broad grin, his eyes sweeping the ground and silencing the murmuring. Think of all the steps involved in manufacturing. Ore must be extracted, refined, and shipped. Parts must be fabricated, then assembled. If only there was a way to shape the raw material directly into the end product. He stroked the glass jar lovingly. Well, today there is. With the simple application of a magic field. He flipped the switch at the base of the jar, and suddenly every ball bearing's eyes lit up. 2 tiny wings appeared on each, and the little metal orbs fluttered out of the jar and into the air.
Well, At least they're not as cute. Can't see Fluttershy doubting them.
Applejack muttered. Mr. Horse continued with his broad, confident smile. Any design can be programmed into the mecha sprites, and they will proceed to seek out raw material, ingest, process, and produce the design. Watch. And he pushed another button on the base. The mecha sprites began to bob in the air with the strangest churring noise. Then they suddenly descended on the scrap metal and began to take little bites out of the twisted lengths. They chewed up the bits of metal and spat out wads of shiny metal on the table, forming the globs into solid steel. They smoothed the metal with licks of their tongues, and in a minute, an automatic pistol lay on the table. Voila! From scrap to weapon in 10 seconds flat. Mr. Horse clearly had a strange sense of time, but I saw his point. Wait, were there more mecha sprites? As I watched, one opened its mouth and belched out another mecha sprite that was rust red. As you can see, the mecha sprites will use surplus materials to manufacture more production units. They can even specialize to improve efficiency. Twilight Sparkle raised a hoof.
Not to be an alarmist, but what's to stop them from eating, say, Huffington?
Excellent question, Miss Sparkle. His grin clearly said he'd hoped some pony would ask that. Get them outside the magical field, and? He caught one in his mouth and pulled it from the others. Its eyes went wide, and then the wings wrapped around it, and it retracted back into a ball. My host started to fidget with something in her bag.
Are they supposed to be doing that?
Rainbow Dash asked as she pointed at the table. The scrap metal was all gone, and now a veritable swarm of mecha sprites devoured the metal table, and began to gnaw on the metal bleachers the audience sat upon. Mr. Horse's smile turned a touch more nervous. Aha, eager little things, aren't they? He stepped up to the case and flicked the switch off. The mecha sprites, however, continued to eat and multiply in greater and greater abundance. What? This isn't possible! He gasped as he stared at the device.
Well, they're doing a whole lot of eating for impossible.
Applejack cried out.
Look out, every pony!
She yelled as one of the beams holding the roof groaned and bent. Mr. Horse gave a frustrated sigh and nudged the ponies watching on nervously. They immediately tossed dozens of apple grenades into the swarm. Bright blue bands flashed brilliantly as the shock grenades scrambled the magic animating the machines. As one, they folded their wings and clattered to the concrete floor. The yellow stallion ran his hoof through his mane. Well, that was an unforeseen glitch we haven't encountered before. But certainly you can see the potential.
I sure can. The potential for disaster.
Rainbow Dash scoffed.
I don't think the MOA will need your mecha sprites, Mr. Horse. Ain't nothing good that can come from something based on those critters.
Applejack agreed as ponies started filing out.
Come on, Twilight.
The purple mare approached Mr. Horse with a sympathetic smile.
I'm sorry, Mr. Horse. It really did have amazing potential.
They shouldn't have done that, he replied firmly.
Well, something caused them to. I'm sorry. If you'd like, perhaps we could take a second look at them. Find out where they went wrong.
She asked politely. He looked at her sharply a moment, but then relaxed. Thank you, but that won't be necessary. I suspect this is an internal matter. Twilight looked concerned, but finally just shrugged. My host rose and left with the other ponies filing out after the 3 ministry mares.
Can you believe that? Mecha sprites? I thought this guy was supposed to be some mechanical genius.
Rainbow Dash scoffed.
Instead, he nearly turned Flankfurt into mecha sprite munchies. Well, in every harvest, you're going to get a few rotten apples. You'll do better next time.
Applejack said with a sigh.
Looks like I'm going to have to skip lunch. Gotta head over to Aegis next. See how they're working on the latest combat armor. Applejack, I haven't seen you in weeks. You promised.
Rainbow Dash said irritably.
I know. But this is important too. My brother signed up, and if he's going fighting, I want something protecting him other than his thick skull.
Ugh. All right. You and me then, Twilight.
Rainbow Dash said brightly, then frowned and looked over at the purple mare.
Twilight.
Equestria to Egghead. Come in, Egghead.
She immediately started.
Oh, I actually can't. I have a, meeting.
Rainbow Dash hung her head with a groan, muttering,
Worst day ever.
My host turned down a side hall and went up some stairs to a window overlooking the demonstration floor. Mr. Horse and a number of research mares were gathering the mecha sprites into baskets. Then, my host took off her saddlebags and pulled out a small arcane device. It worked, she said softly, passing it to an open door. A hoof took the device and slipped it inside. A moment later, a heavy bag of bits was tossed out at her hooves. Thank you. My host nickered happily as he stroked her hooves through the gold coins. I could do more. I have access. I could completely screw his research, my host said, as she tucked the bits into her saddlebag. That won't be necessary, the hidden mare said softly. We only wanted to discredit, not disrupt. My host frowned sharply at the cracked door. Well, you might want to pay to keep me around and handy. The air filled with a tense pause. And if I don't? My host smirked. I might feel chatty. I see. Then I felt something tickle her ear. She looked over and saw the silenced barrel of a pistol floating beside her head. I would rather Mr. Horse waste his time with this setback. But an equicide or suicide investigation would do, Miss Fairhoof. And it would be cheaper. My host's guts immediately loosened as she started to shake. Please. Don't play games with us and we won't play games with you, Miss Fairhoof. Trust me, you won't like our games. The hidden mare chuckled as the gun disappeared through the door. They're killers. I emerged from the memory with a chill. First, of course, I checked for the inevitable zebra ninja assassins, or enclave agents. It was odd not to worry about waking to find Deus sodomizing me. Okay, disturbing image, please go away. Still, I rose and gave myself a vigorous shake. Everything okay? No pony dead? No, but some ponies should be. P21 scowled at the terminal. 12K password, all to hide the dirty notes the manager was passing to the secretary at Robronco HQ. It looks like they were arranging a little party of their own in her office, he said with a little chuckle. Has her password and everything. Was sex always this complicated before the bombs fell? Probably, I said as I lifted the orb. Where'd you find this? P21 snorted and rolled his eyes. Typed to the back of a drawer, actually. Guess she didn't want some pony to find it. Was her name Fairhoof? I asked, as I looked at him. He frowned in confusion. The manager. No, he said. It was, Mary Penny. Why? But I could see why. There was a grainy newspaper clip on the wall behind him. Robronco retail manager dies to runaway robot. Most of the rest of the article was illegible, but I could at least make out that the manager had been a unicorn mare. You won't like our games. They're killers. Ponies sabotaging other ponies' work? Bribes? Murder? What the hell was going on in this town? A lot of secrets in the hoof. Like a country within a country. Why was my mane creeping at the thought of that? I left first. Our sacks were bulging with nummy looted goods. I was sure that once we converted them into caps, I'd have everything I needed to pay for EC-1101's decoding. Unfortunately, the pensive look of Rampage doused my excitement, but one look from her pink eyes as she slowly chewed on a menthol made it clear that pity would be hazardous to my health. P-21 and Glory exchanged a glance, but kept their comments to themselves. I chuckled softly to myself, wondering if we were the most dysfunctional band of friends in all the wasteland. Probably. "So why are we delivering a 200-year-old letter?" Glory asked as we trudged along a flooded street, clammy cold mud squelching under my hooves as I moved in the lead. My rifle swung slowly back and forth at the red bars that inhabited the ruins. Bloat sprites for the most part, and I didn't waste rifle ammo on them. Since I was already running low on ammo for the carbine, I picked them off with that and swapped back to the scope to check for trouble. Another 2 bobbing sprites ahead. A swap out, and 5 shots later, the carbine was dry and the street ahead clear. "Because the pit buck says so," I replied grandly, as the clouds overhead threatened more rain. "Who knows? Maybe it's going to a ghoul who will be touched that we delivered mail to it and give us a super sweet silver bullet so I can vaporize whatever monster Sanguine sends next. Or, eat our brains," Glory added with a chuckle. "Always with the brains. Honestly, it's not like ghouls can chew through skulls," Rampage said with a scornful little snort. "Actually, most ghouls favor the softer organs, liver, lungs, and entrails." My stomach lurched a little. "Yeah, that's more than I needed to know." Glory frowned in thought and then looked at me. "Is that true?" "Why are you asking me?" I wondered with a nervous laugh. "I'm creeped out enough by raider cannibalism. Don't even make me wonder about ghoul diets. You can ask one when we meet one." I know," she huffed as she fluttered her wings. "It's just the scientist in me. I mean, if they're immortal and healed by radiation, why the drive to eat at all? Is it a reflex? Instinctive? Is there an actual need to eat, or do ponies simply taste good?" "So, Fallen Glory is a scientist?" P-21 asked with a small smile, making her almost trip. I frowned at him, but of course he didn't care. The light gray Pegasus gave a little frown. I don't know, but Glory is at least a curious pony." I smiled at that. Morning Glory had been a shy, scared, and blindly loyal Pegasus. Glory was curious, but wary. What would Fallen be like? I hoped that she'd just be a mask Glory wore when she was around Enclave ponies. "So, who are we delivering this piece of junk to?" Rampage asked, as she punted a half-submerged skull aside. I looked at the faded lettering on the envelope. Mr. and Mrs. Cake at..." I glanced up and my voice trailed away. "Sugar Cube Corner." The rotting structure leaned precariously out over the alley where it slouched against a burned-out shell of its neighbor. The colorful pink paint had decayed into a fleshy grayish tone. The white trim darkened and peeling with the constant moisture. The roof had warped in the rain till it resembled mummified leather. A tower once resembling stacked cupcakes now creaked as it leaned over to the side like a vengeful hoof about to fall. One wall had blackened but not burned, a testament to the sturdy building materials. Leaning plastic candy decorations poked out of the muddy ground before the store. Broken, colorful glass stood in twisted window frames like squinting eye sockets. Over the front door dangled a sign hanging from one corner. "Sugar Cube Corner," it read, and beneath that, "Cakes and Confectionery." And there were yellow bars inside. I put a hoof on the front step, and the structure gave a great groan. I clenched my eyes closed at the thought of being buried delivering mail to ponies probably dead. Deus would laugh his ass off. "Okay, I don't think we should all go inside. Just me and maybe Glory." "Sure, some pony will have to dig your butts out after it falls on your head," Rampage muttered as she looked at the tottery structure. Slowly, we made our way up the steps and past a mold-spotted poster reading, "Official Ministry of Morale Confectionery Center." The sight of Pinkie Pie popping out of a cake with that grin on her face made me shiver. The waterlogged floor sagged a little with each step. I looked at the walls tilted at crazy angles, the splintered paneling showing the soaked, crumbling bones of the building. I kept glancing at my pit book. The second it said this job was complete, I was out of here. There was a little arrowhead on my EFS, but still the note wouldn't clear. Clearly, Sugar Cube Corner wasn't good enough. One look in the kitchen was enough to convince me not to go inside. It looked like the brick ovens were the only things holding up that half of the building. That left the stairs. I put my weight on the leaning steps, glad they leaned with the slouch of the building rather than against it. My hooves fought for purchase on the uneven surface as the structure groaned and swayed around me. The door at the top of the stairs wasn't flimsy wood, but rusting steel covered by a splintered wooden veneer. Stepping onto the second floor, I noticed that wasn't all that was wrong here. Why would a bakery need a room full of rusted terminals and monitors? A large chalkboard slumped against the leaning wall. On it were drawn 3 columns: good ponies, bad ponies, and really super knotted wicked bad ponies. Only the second and third columns had names in them. There were posters up here too, but of a decidedly different bent. "Remember, we keep Equestria fun and safe," the poster read as Pinkie Pie twitched her tail. "Only you can prevent trouble," read another. There were also a lot of bones in here. Now I had a problem. Left was where my pit book was telling me to go. Right were 3 yellow bars. Non-hostiles. Well, if I didn't have to bother whoever was that way, then best to not bother them. I walked to the left towards an actual bedroom. 2 skeletons greeted me, one splayed across the terminal and the other curled up in the corner of the room. I looked at my pit book. This was definitely the place. "So, are we done here?" Glory asked. No. I sighed and remembered what I had done with Octavia. Slowly, I tore open the paper and withdrew the letter inside.
Hey!
A giant pink head screamed in glee. I fell to my rump as I dropped the paper, and the tiny pink talisman in the middle of the page shot glitter and streamers all over me. A deep groan rolled through the building. The huge ghostly head of Pinkie Pie flickered as she grinned down at me.
Hey, is Mr. Cake. Hey, is Mrs. Cake. I wanted to try out this super terrific invitation spell and thought it'd be perfect for you.
She gave a sympathetic little frown.
I know you two aren't happy being away from Ponyville, but you're the only 2 good ponies who are super good terrific that you'd never turn your back on me, or say I have a problem, or call me what she called me.
The smile was now rictus, her cheek twitching as she stared at me. It was scary how the friendly smile seemed to melt off her face, her curly mane slowly straightening before my eyes as she quivered.
You two have always been the nicest, nice ponies I've ever known. You're like my mom and dad,
she said as her head started to shake and she gave a hiccup.
I think there's something wrong. Very, very wrong. Super terrible, bad wrong. And I have to stop it. I'm the only one who can. Then maybe we can have a real party. In Ponyville. Like we used to.
She suddenly stiffened.
But first, we have to find the bad ponies in Huffington. I know Quartz is a no-good, terrible, bad pony. And those 4-star ponies, too. But I think there are others. I think the ponies in my hub there are bad. I think they know what the bad ponies are up to. It's all secrets and lies in that place. No pony is who they say they are. No pony is. Except you two. Right? Right. Right! So please, find something. Anything. Please?
Hooves covered her face.
You're the only ones I could give a piece of myself to. You're my real parents. Please? Mom? Dad? Help me?
With that, the tiny engraved sliver of rose quartz snapped in two, and the glowing ghostly head disappeared, leaving us covered in magical pink glitter and streamers. Pinkie Pie needing help. I thought she was supposed to be the happy one, yet that was almost begging. Terminals. Lists of ponies. I thought the Ministry of Morale was supposed to be about fun. How in the wasteland had she gone from Fun Time Pinkie Pie to that? Can we go now? Glory asked softly as the building groaned around us. There were faint popping noises in the floor. Please, Blackjack, Glory begged as she backed out the door. Wait, I muttered as I looked to the skeleton in the corner. Slowly, I crawled closer. I could feel the floor quivering under my hooves. There! A flash of pink under the bones. Gently, I reached out with my magic and tugged the tiny pink figurine free. Slowly, I pulled it close and turned it with my magic, my eyes widening as I stared at the tiny plaque. Awareness. It was under E. It read. I looked at her mischievous grin, her bright and shining eyes. Not that desperate and sobbing pony I'd just seen a minute earlier. Why were the walls around the cakes full of bullet holes? I could see them clear as day through the layer of filth and peeling candy cane wallpaper. The holes were evenly spaced, an automatic sweeping from left to right. This was a murder. Another 200-year-old murder. My mane crawled on my neck as I remembered the ponies in the museum. And then I spotted the writing on the wall. The sort of thing you might try to write as you bled out while cradling the statue of your surrogate daughter. Project Eternity. Then my senses picked up something else. Clouds through the gaps in the roof, and Glory screaming as the room slowly peeled away from the rest of the structure. I gripped the statuette in my mouth as I scrabbled for the door, as rotten carpet sloughed away under hoof. The rotting turret leaning out over me was starting to collapse as well. Then, hooves wrapped around me as Glory leapt through the door and squeezed me tightly as she flapped her wings for all she was worth. Out we went, over the broken side of the building as the turret crashed down. The wind nearly knocked me from her hooves as it passed. Glory, you're flying! I cheered, and then looked back. Glory, we need to go back. There's 3 more in there, and it's about to come down. Indeed, the entire building seemed to be disintegrating before my eyes. In a minute or two, it would pancake flat. She just looked, and then nodded, swinging me through the air back towards the second-floor hall. I ran smack into a stallion scrambling for the stairs. Then I noticed something unusual. It was under E. For one, he was mostly clean. 2, he smelled of semen and musk. 3, there was blood on his rear legs. 4th, I knew him. I saw the bow tie on his gray flanks. What are you doing here? I asked, ignoring the shaking building as joists popped and creaked.
Run! It's collapsing!
He shouted. He hadn't tried to run until I'd fallen out. My eyes narrowed. What the fuck are you doing here? He stared into my gaze, and then looked over his shoulder at the back room. I grabbed his ear in my teeth, and with a pull, threw him over my shoulders, and tossed him out over the edge. Fortunately, I was aiming for beyond the wreckage and he landed, thrashing and sputtering, the muck having broken his fall. P-21, sit on him. Rampage, prop this building up. I could hear the bricks of the stove below collapsing. Inside were a number of metal bed frames and a unicorn mare and filly who were bound to one with a particularly bloody mattress. The filly was just tied with rope, but the mare had been chained and hoof-cuffed. I made one swipe with my dragon claw and freed the filly. Get her out of here! I shouted at Glory as I looked back at the mare. At the lavender unicorn mare with a broken horn. I just gotta survive. I have a kid. A chill ran down my spine as I looked at the tight cuffs locked around her hooves. They were cutting into her hide. Hopelessness bloomed in her eyes. Please, take care of Thorn, she shouted. Not happening, I said as I looked at the locks. I had no clue if I could pick them. You're going to get out of here. I focused my horn on the locks. I didn't even have a bobby pin on hand. Instead, I just forced the lock to turn, my eyes watering. Snap! With that clear, crisp breaking noise, I knew that the lock connecting to the chain of the beds wasn't coming off. I glared at the two cuffs. Carefully. Carefully. My eyes watered as I fought to maintain focus. Snap!
Sweet motherfucking Celestia, cut me some slack here, I screamed as I bit down on the chain,
wrapped it in my forehooves, braced my hind hooves against the metal headboard, and started to pull.
Come on!
I screamed as I strained, my heart thudding in my chest as if I were riding a high of Buck. Buck! The way my heart was beating now, could I take some more? Be strong. I had to be strong. I had to be better. I levitated the tablet of Buck and chewed. The energy surged to my limbs as I screamed and pulled with all my might. My heart beat so loud that I couldn't hear the collapsing building around me. Then the chain gave way with a loud ping. I didn't hesitate a second as I shoved my head through her cuffed hooves and lifted her onto my back. Ducking my head, I ran from the collapsing building. The floor dropped out from under us as I leapt for the doorway to the missing room. A great gust of wind picked us up and shot us into the debris as the building collapsed behind us. We were together in a tangle of limbs, chains, and broken wood. Rampage pulled herself from the wreckage, gripping a jagged spar that impaled her torso and pulling it free as if she were removing a splinter. I knew exactly how she felt. My heart beat so hard it felt like there was a spar of wood in my chest. I really wish I could yank it out too. I struggled to breathe, but each pant didn't bring in any air. Glory flew to my side.
Oh, you idiot! What did you take? Buck? Hydra? It was Buck, wasn't it?
She cried as she fought to keep my head above the foul water.
Your heart is going to explode, you jackass!
She shouted, and then pulled out a Med-X and jabbed it home. The pain lessened, and I liked to imagine that my heart rate was slowing down.
Is she going to be okay?
The unicorn with the broken horn murmured. I was struck by the ironic sight of flowers for her cutie mark. I'd only seen them in pictures.
No, she is not, Glory said firmly. She is going to kill herself at this rate, because she is not a smart pony. She saved me,
the lavender unicorn said as she sat down. Glory looked at her broken horn, and her eyes widened.
You're that slaver.
She winced, and her foal ran to her side. Glory looked at the young filly, and then at the slaver.
Ugh!
The Pegasus walked to one side and began stomping plastic candy lawn ornaments.
I prefer Deus. At least it was easy to hate him, she fumed.
No offense, but what are we going to do with him? P-21 asked as he nodded down to the stallion he sat on. P-21 had shoved an apple grenade into the stallion's mouth. I wasn't exactly sure if that was the smartest thing to do, but the stallion wasn't trying anything. Slowly, I sat up, the Med-X calming me down enough to catch my breath.
What?
He's a rapist. Are we gonna let him go to do that again? P-21 asked as he tapped the stem of the apple.
Take it out of his mouth, P-21.
I felt oddly numb.
You're Frisk, right?
I asked as P-21 removed the explosive.
What the fuck do you think you are doing?
Getting even, he muttered as he glared up at me.
When she had the guns, she tied me up and was happy to sell me to paradise. And she got her horn smashed for it. Are you saying she tried it a second time?
He just glared up at me. I looked at the unicorn as my heart thudded in my chest. I heard a whisper in my ears. So, what's the proper punishment for a rapist? The old pale stallion murmured in a voice like shuffling cards.
I'm not an executioner.
Blackjack, P-21 hissed in outrage. How is this fucker different from 99?
He's different in that I have to pull the trigger,
I said firmly as I stared down at him.
I won't make you or Glory murderers.
It's not murder, P21 argued. I looked at him. He's unarmed. He's not Minai. He's not dying slowly and tragically. This stallion is scum, P21 retorted. Glory just swallowed. I know what he did was wrong, and I don't want him to ever do it again. But killing him isn't the answer. We glanced at Rampage. She cocked a brow and snickered. What? You want my opinion? She then turned to the foal who watched us all warily. Did he hurt you, sweetie? She asked, with a surprisingly gentle smile. The filly returned a scared but slow shake of her head. Rampage shrugged. I'm good either way. I looked at the mare then, the mare that I had maimed in my own battle rage. Do you want me to kill him? I asked, hearing those cards shuffle over and over again. I'm not an executioner. I'm not. This is justice. This is what's fair. She met my gaze and gave the tiniest of nods. Out came the hunting rifle. Funny how I couldn't hear my heart anymore. It was as if everything inside me had gone still and quiet. Let him up, I muttered, and with a frown P21 agreed. My eyes met Frisk's. You have till the count of 10 to run. P21 pressed his lips together as the stallion scrambled to his hooves. 1, I said softly. Frisk backed away slowly. 2, I counted as I lifted the barrel with my magic. He immediately turned and ran. I grit my teeth. 3. Are you going to be able to do it, Blackjack? P21 asked with a scowl. Would I? 4, I intoned, watching him run through ankle-deep water. With rubble on either side of him, he could only go in one direction. 5. The water sprayed up around him as I leveled the crosshairs on the back of his neck. 6. You can't do this, Blackjack. Please, you're not a murderer. Glory begged. Was I? I'd always been a killer. Was I ready to become an executioner, killing coolly and deliberately? 7. I'd thought he'd been further along, but he was slowed by the water and junk hidden under the surface. 8. I saw the crosshairs tremble on the back of his head. Rampage didn't say a word. You'll bash your skull to paste long before you die of thirst. 9. Is this how it begins? 10. Be kind. I clenched my eyes shut and collapsed into the water, tears running down my face as I fell to my knees, hugging the rifle to keep from losing the weapon in the muck. I let out a sob as I bowed my head. I could imagine P21's disappointed expression as I failed him again. I'm sorry, I whispered. Then I looked at the maimed mare. She stared at me in shock. I couldn't. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. The mare just held her wide-eyed foal. Then she said softly, I don't really mind. You didn't kill me either. You are one strange pony, Scalpel said as I stood in her auto dock, letting the machine probe and restore me through her magic. Most ponies don't bust a horn one day and pay to replace it the next. Roses, the mare I'd rescued, and almost killed, was resting upstairs with Thorn. She quit being a slaver, I replied softly. That has to count for something. She lost her gun and her crew, but that doesn't mean she quit. Frisk raped her. She deserves something. I muttered.
If it wasn't in flank, it doesn't matter,
she replied as she took another drink.
It matters. To you, sure. To me, a bit. But to most ponies, it was her own fault getting caught. Hell, most ponies would think it fair payback to a former slaver. She has a foal. Well, that's the first in the wasteland,
Scalpel said with a chuckle.
You know what your problem is? Brain damage. You think all ponies are good people, and you want to help them. That's a problem. It is if you think you can help all of them on your own. Don't you help every pony you can? Sure do, but I've narrowed down my can a bit to what I can manage. I recognize that some ponies can't be helped. Too addicted, too burnt out, too eaten up. They'll take every little bit of help I can offer and still mess themselves up. So I have to make the rotten call and write them off. And they die, sure enough as I'd shot 'em dead. But if I didn't, I'd be just as dead. So it's you or them? Is that it? They don't have a chance without me, she replied with a shrug. I sighed and closed my eyes. I could have killed her, but I didn't want to be an executioner. I wanted to kill him, but I couldn't do it. Why? She tapped my head. Because you want to save them. You want them to be good ponies again. But ponies ain't good or bad. Ponies is ponies. And the sooner you realize that, the easier it'll be. Yeah, but I'm too stupid for easy. Well, I'll say something nice at your funeral. I get one? Sweet. Will there be cake? She laughed as she deactivated the machine. You are one twigged mare. I'll take that as a good thing, I replied with a grin. Her expression turned more serious as she adjusted her glasses. Are you looking to take over flank? I don't know. Should I? Not if you believe in good ponies. The ponies here aren't? No pony is. Some try, but flank isn't about helping. Here, every pony is looking out for themselves and doing what they have to do. I closed my eyes, imagining Bar Pony. I know two that are looking out for others. Well, that's two more than I know, she replied. I smiled and gave a shake before slipping my barding back on. I need to find Caprice. Is she back in her office yet? Ask your friend at the bar, Scalpel said with a little snicker. You do know who she is, don't you? I keep trying to find out, I muttered. Oh, well, I won't ruin the surprise for you. I huffed softly. And that keeps happening. Something was wrong, and once again I couldn't put my hoof on it. Did Scalpel always look so tired? Well, speaking of Caprice, I should probably go and tell her that we'll have finished fortifying this place soon. And if she doesn't like it, I'm handing it all to that bar pony. Or you. Or some pony. Hell, I can run this place better than she can. Great. Now Scalpel looked worried. Well, I'm sure she'll be glad to hear that. Why don't you go get a bite at the trough first, though? Magic is no substitute for food, she said with her frayed smile. Good idea. See you later, I replied. Walking out, I noticed something else. These were the same addicts as I'd seen before. In fact, they were the same as when I'd first been brought in. I suppose treatment took more than a single day. Look at how many times I'd been back to deal with the damage I'd caused myself. Still, things weren't much better in the trough. For some reason, I was noticing how off things were. The bountiful food really wasn't all that great in amount. They just spread it out more.
The fresh produce from the society was withered and pale. The apples on top were decent enough, but most of the remainder were soft and overripe. Even 200 years fresh had empty cardboard boxes behind the packages. The only food that actually looked appetizing, I'm sorry to say, was the food in the Enclave shop, and that was closed and locked up. Something was definitely off. I suppose that, having been around Flank for a while, I'd finally started to notice things. Still, had the security mirrors always followed me around like that? They didn't look like they were after more pointers. P-21 and Rampage had gone to raid Deus's camp of everything not nailed down, while Glory and I returned to Flank. She was now in the exchange trying to convert our salvage to caps. And me? It was time to see Caprice. I strode into Stable 89, my eyes starting to flicker amber as I'd finally sucked up enough radiation to trigger my mutation. I was resolved to see Caprice and get this done. Then I saw Barpony chatting with Scalpel. The former seemed to be waiting for me, and my nethers gave me other options as Scalpel trotted further in. I guess even doctors needed to scratch that itch from time to time. "Hey," I said with an easy grin. She looked good. Tired, tense, worried, but good. Really good.
Hey, yourself.
She said as she bumped my rump and passed me a bottle of Sparkle Cola.
Heard you had a busy day helping the town.
Yeah, something like that. I took a pull off the bottle. It tasted odd. Sweet, but also bitter. It must have been an old bottle. But I need to see Caprice. I have business with her. Her eyes twitched to my barding, my guns.
Oh? Well, she's still out. So how about we go back to my quarters till she gets back?
She asked, and only the thought of her offer stopped me from going through the roof. Sure, I said with a chuckle, groaning as she nuzzled my mane. I had to admit, watching the filly's flank was even more appealing now. It was like a moon. Like a beautiful peach moon. I had to admit there was something nice about her room. Maybe it was the light. Everything in the room had a whitish silvery glow to it. I was glowing. She was glowing. It was like we were making love in the stars. I just gave such a wide grin my cheeks hurt. Okay, I'm ready for another.
Unfortunately, I need to check on a few things. Then I'll be right back,
she said as she slipped from my hooves. I closed my eyes again with a soft groan. So not fair.
Don't whine, Blackjack.
She told me with a little wink.
It makes you sound virginal.
With that, she slipped out the door and I groaned. I lay on my back, trying to touch that soft shimmery light. Blackjack, the old stallion rasped. Go away. I've orgasmed. I don't need to talk to Crazy. Blackjack, you need to take a fixer, he said softly. Fixer doesn't fix nothing. That's what Glory said, I muttered as I looked up at the colors. I feel good. Why do I need to fix that? Everything's so ugly. She's pretty. She's nice. Let me feel good. Please. Maybe, but this isn't real. You need to take a fixer. She has some in her drawer. How do you know that? You know it, he replied simply. I started to cry. Just let me stay here. Please, I don't want to go out there where it's horrible. I am so sick of horrible. I liked it better when I didn't notice how bad things are. That's the price you pay for noticing. Look at Pinkie Pie. Look at what she saw. See how it destroyed her. You can't lie here, Blackjack. Get on your hooves. I slowly rolled out of the bed and staggered over to her desk. I lifted the package of Fixer, wincing at the way the red colors of the packaging bled into the silver glow. I pressed the bitter tablet to my tongue and chewed. The glow disappeared, and I gave myself a brisk shake. Everything from the hallway to the bed was a blur. My barding and my stuff were nowhere to be seen. "Please," I whispered to the memory of long-dead goddesses. "Please, please don't let this be a setup." Her room was decorated with strands of colored lights. Every inch of the room had strange little trinkets and knickknacks. I looked at some of her treasures. A spent magic cartridge, a full hoof booty, a kazoo. They were all teasing me, making me wonder about this mare. I noticed a lot of papers in a wastebasket. I probably wouldn't have paused if I hadn't noticed the writing was all fancy and looping, like how I'd seen Princess Celestia write. I floated one out, narrowing my eyes. "My dearest peach pie, I look forward to munching your apricot of love. No words can adequately express how full and throbbing my rhubarb is for your delectable flower. I long to nuzzle your sweet grass and look forward to your lips full of celery. Your sweetest cherry, Lord Orange." Okay. Then I glanced down. "P.S. I'm including an incentive of 10,000 caps to sway you to my garden of love." 10,000 caps? For sex? I couldn't imagine. I looked at her desk and the colorful bottles. Not just soda. Perfume bottles. And there were full stickers all over her terminal. And glitter. And it was under E. Then I noticed it. A little spot of something drab on the bookshelf. Something plain. It wasn't hidden so much as simply placed behind layers and layers of junk. That's what all this was. Not trophies or important memories, but simply stuff. Stuff to deceive and mislead. A veil. Slowly, I walked to the bookshelf, and my horn carefully moved aside the bottles and levitated out a picture in a dusty frame. Softly, I swept it aside and looked down at the grainy black and white photograph of a grizzly stallion standing over 3 fillies, hugging them all in his hooves. The one on the left, with the disdainful look at the other two, I didn't know. The one on the right, grinning gleefully up at the old stallion, was the bar pony who'd given me all kinds of wonderful feelings minutes ago. But in the middle, bottle cap. The door hissed open right then, and in walked Caprice. Suddenly, I could see around her edges, the apprehension underlying her smooth demeanor, the weariness in her eyes, the fear. She was afraid of me. Why? I wasn't her enemy. Was I? Yes, I was.
You're up.
She said, trying to keep her voice smooth. She may have pulled it off before, too, but now I heard the strain in her voice. Yeah, I think I took something, I said calmly as I put the picture back, and then I levitated the package of Fixer. So I think I took something else, I said, frowning. Why didn't you tell me you were Caprice?
I was just playing.
She began, sliding into an easily prepared line. My lips pressed together. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Not even most of the truth.
Blackjack, please. Why don't we continue our fun,
I looked at her, not smiling now. I just stared and watched her slowly unravel. The tense smile, the pleading eyes, the nervous shake. A little pressure, and they were impossible to hide. No, I think we're done with that, Caprice.
Please don't kill me.
She whispered as she shook. What? What are you talking about? I frowned as I looked at her, feeling my mane crawl. Gemini and Taurus, they knew exactly where to find me. And U-21. And Deus. You sold me out! I shouted at her as my eyes narrowed.
You fucked me. She started back out the door, but my stare locked her in place. You told the security mares to step aside, didn't you? You wanted me to come into the stable, make me nice and comfortable, drug me up and hand me over to Deus. And Tars knew exactly where that bridge was to cut me off. He could have sniped me easily if I hadn't trapped Minai.
I had no choice.
She cried out.
It was hand you over, or Deus would have leveled flank and buried us alive inside the stable. This town is everything. It's all I have.
She said as she finally backed away.
Now you're taking over, just like Usury did at Paradise and Bottlecap did at Megamart. You're going to take flank away from me.
She yelled as she backed towards the door. I wanted to protect it. I wanted to protect you. You could have told me. You could have just asked me to go. I wanted to help you, Caprice. Not flank. You. I snarled as the white glow of my magic sheathed my horn. It was like back at the mine. I was looking right at a softer, sweeter Lancer. A snake. If I didn't kill her now, she'd just bite me again later. A dry shuffling of cards and an expectant silence. But I am not a fucking executioner, I snapped as she backed away through the door into the Overmayor's office. I walked over to my saddlebags and pulled out her letter from Bottlecap and threw it in her face. There! Message delivered. The Finders owe me 3 contracts. Pay up. She looked at the letter at her hooves, shaking. Without opening it, she tossed it into the trash and then walked to her safe. She pulled out 5 bags marked 1000C and set them on the table. I swept them into my saddlebags. She stiffed me 10%, but I didn't care at this point. I just wanted to get the hell out of flank.
Sorry.
She muttered softly.
I just liked not being me.
Yeah, I muttered back, chewing down another bitter tablet. I liked you not being you, too. I'm the security pony. I'm the one who shows up to kill all the fun. Flank was glad to see me go. They had their turrets. The rest was up to them. I'd wrangled a few concessions for our hard work. A working wagon, the contents of Octavia's closet, a few recordings from mixers. Those 2 had been the only ones genuinely sad to see me leave. Even Scalpel had just looked at me with her tired, burned-out eyes, and just given me a shrug. Roses and Thorn would be coming with us to Megamart, or just someplace that wasn't here. When Rampage and P21 returned, we simply loaded it all in the cart and left. So, you figure out who Caprice is yet? The Reaper asked. Shut up, Rampage, I muttered. Ponies is ponies, Scalpel had said. They're not good or evil. Maybe that was true. Maybe we were all somewhere on a slope of gray. But I knew there were ponies who struggled every day to stay as high on that slope as they could, and others that just apathetically slid further and further down. Footnote. Level up. Perk added. Action Mare, rank 2. Plus 15 additional AP and sats. Skill note. Lockpicking, 50.